Hello everyone. Welcome to a new series of videos that I'm going to put together for the run up to Christmas. I've called this series Christ at Christmas, and it's going to be a series of 8 videos. I'm going to release them on a Tuesday and a Thursday afternoon to follow a similar pattern as when Andrew and I were doing a walk through Romans. And each video will be 10 to 15 minutes long, something like that. And hopefully they will help us to get excited about Christmas, the Christmas story, what it really means for us. I was thinking recently about, what do we think of normally when we think of the Christmas story? And I think what comes to mind for most of us is, the kind of traditional, quaint nativity scene where you have a star and some wise men and some shepherds and angels singing and Mary, Joseph and the baby Jesus in a stable in Bethlehem. And that's of course, right. But actually what it kind of conjures this sort of inoffensive message, this harmless, sweet, quaint, almost nostalgic kind of message. And I think that's fair because so many of us have wonderful childhood memories of Christmas. And for me, I remember going to bed on Christmas Eve as a 4, 5, 6-year-old and hanging at my stocking on the door on my bedroom empty, and then waking up the next morning and seeing it now bulging with presents, which was always the same thing: toothpaste, toothbrush, socks, chocolate money, Satsuma. That's what we got. You might have got something different, but that was it. And yet it was I don't think there's anything that quite rivals the magic of Christmas morning for a young child. And so if it's fair enough that I think it conjures these nostalgic, wonderful memories for us when we think of Christmas. And now some of us are getting older and got kids, and seeing our own kids now doing nativity plays in school with little ones dressed up as Mary and Joseph and the wise men and donkeys and shepherds with tea towels on their heads, and it's all very sweet and very lovely, very nostalgic and quaint. But what I would like us to do is actually to dig a bit more into the Christmas story, because there's just so much more to it than that. As Christians, we get really, really excited about Easter Sunday particularly, and with good reason, right? And worship is always amazing on Easter Sunday, and then the following Sunday someone will always say, well, it's Easter Sunday every Sunday because Jesus is alive, and he is, and of course that is wonderful and life-changing for us. But what I'd love is if we as a people were just as excited about Christmas and the meaning of Christmas as we are about Easter and the meaning of Easter. And so I want to delve a bit deeper into the Christmas story. See, not just a baby, not just any baby was born that first Christmas, but a Jewish baby. And that is really important because Jesus was born into the Jewish story, which had been going on for millennia before Jesus. And it began with a man. God called a man called Abraham and said to Abraham, through you and through your offspring, I am going to bless the whole world. You are going to be a father of many nations. And he fathered sons who became nations, and one of them, who followed the line, became the nation of Israel. And with a long and checkered and interesting history of highs and lows and ups and downs, some fascinating, amazing characters in that story, sort of heroes and anti-heroes, all sorts. It's an amazing story. And all through that story, we see this theme running, that whilst Israel are supposed to carry the promises of a saviour for the world, actually Israel are plagued with the same problems of sin and walking away from God as the rest of the world are, all the other nations. And so what's the solution? Well, the solution is this promised one. Through the nation of Israel's story, God promised again and again, prophesied again and again about one who is coming. And who this one is kind of narrowed down through the whole story, from being someone who is the seed of Eve, seed of a woman to the seed of Abraham to, Isaac and Jacob and Judah and then David, and it just keeps getting narrowed down to who this Messiah is going to be, who this promised one is going to be. You see, Jesus isn't therefore the start of the story. He is the start of a new section of the story. So he is the start of the story in one sense, because he's the start of a new beginning in a section. But that's precisely because he is also, when he is born, the climax of the story as it has been so far. He arrives in our Bibles 3/4 of the way through. And so there's a lot that has gone before him. And it's really important that we get some of that, because that adds colour and depth to the Christmas story and to why it's so exciting that a baby was born in Bethlehem in a manger. So what I want to do with these videos is just look through Matthew chapter 1 and chapter 2 together. I've been recently reading a brilliant commentary, here it is, by a guy called Frederick Dale Bruner on the book of Matthew. And it's so good. He's so clever and insightful. And so basically anything clever that you hear in these videos comes from Mr. Bruner. But I just thought I would save you the trouble of reading a big fat commentary and give you some of the best bits to hopefully help us to be excited about Christmas. See, in Matthew chapter 1 and 2, remember that Matthew was a Jewish man writing to a predominantly Jewish audience at the time. And so he was drawing these stories, these threads about the Messiah and who the Messiah was going to be and what he was going to do from the Old Testament right through into his nativity story, into his opening couple of chapters of his gospel. And the Christmas story is not just therefore a kind of quaint, nostalgic story that we have happy memories about. Actually, the Christmas story is a cosmic revolution, and that's the gravitas that Matthew is opening his gospel with. And as we will see, Jesus is, in Matthew's opinion, the Messiah, and but he is actually a surprising Messiah, the long-awaited, prophesied one. And yet we'll see over and over again that Jesus was a surprising answer to Israel's long wait for a Messiah. You could say he was the unexpected, expected Messiah. And we'll see that over and over again as we look through these videos together. So what I want to do for the rest of this video is just to look at the first, I think it's 7 words in the book of Matthew, at least the first 7 in English. I think in Greek it is like the first 5 or something. So Matthew chapter 1 and verse 1 says this: the book of the genealogy of Jesus Christ. That's all I want to look at in this video. The book of the genealogy of Jesus Christ. Now, those are more words in English than they are in Greek. In Greek, I don't speak New Testament Greek. I need clever people to do that and to tell me what it says for me. But Matthew's opening 2 words in Greek are the words Biblos Genesis. I've no idea if that's how you pronounce it. We'll go with it. Okay, and those 2 words literally mean the book of Genesis. Now, Genesis means origin, which is why English translators use the word genealogy, because they're talking about the origin, Jesus' family origin. But actually, it is literally the book of Genesis. And that's important, because remember, Matthew is steeped in Jewish scriptures, what we now call the Old Testament, writing to a people who are similarly steeped in Jewish scriptures. And so when he opens with the book of Genesis, that is not lost on his original hearers. He is saying a new beginning has arrived, a new creation has arrived somehow in Jesus. Some commentators believe that his opening few words is Matthew's intended title for the whole of his gospel, the new beginning, the book of Genesis, which is about Jesus Christ. I'll just quote Frederick Bruner because he's great on this bit. He says, the book of Genesis, Matthew choosing these words, shows that for Matthew, the deepest beginning in history was not the birth of the world, but the birth of the world's Saviour. Isn't that good? Now, when we normally do the 9 lessons at Christmas time in churches, we finish with John chapter 1. Because John chapter 1 is the kind of obvious, overt place to go when we want to talk about how Jesus brings the new creation, it's the beginning of the new creation. Because John chapter 1 so overtly parallels Genesis chapter 1. Genesis 1 opens with, in the beginning, God. And John chapter 1 opens with, in the beginning was the Word. God speaks in Genesis 1, uses words to create things, and that's the theme that John picks up on by saying, in the beginning was the Word. One of the first things God says is, let there be light. And John chapter 1 picks up on that and says how the Word, Jesus, is the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. So John 1 is meant to be an overt parallel to Genesis 1, saying, look, a new creation has arrived in Jesus. But in a much more subtle way, actually, Matthew is doing the same thing with his opening 2 words. The book of Genesis of Jesus, the Messiah. And he uses the word Messiah. In ours, it's the word Christ. I think sometimes we unwittingly fall into, with just familiarity, thinking that Christ is Jesus' surname. It's not. Okay, Christ is the Greek word for the Hebrew word Messiah, which is a little bit less familiar to us, and so actually I feel like carries more weight in the biblical story when we use the word Messiah. Actually, when I read the New Testament now, I in my brain deliberately replace Christ with Messiah, just because for me it's helpful to locate who Jesus is in the whole story. And that's what Matthew opens with, the book of Genesis of Jesus the Messiah. And so for his original Jewish hearers, they hear this title, this Messiah, and they import all of these promises and prophecies over centuries, if not millennia, about this Messiah and who he's going to be and what he's going to do. And Matthew's incredible claim is that the Jewish Messiah is here, and he is called Jesus of Nazareth, Jesus who was born in Bethlehem. Just the first few words of the book of Matthew are incredible, and in a subtle way teach us a lot and try to get at a lot. And so that's all I want to say in this opening video, just an introduction really. In the next video I want to finish verse 1. We'll pick up the pace a bit after that, but in the next video we will just finish off looking at Matthew chapter 1 verse 1. I hope that you enjoy these videos. I hope that they help you to appreciate what God has done for us more and more, and I hope that they increase your joy at Christmas. God bless.